The latest has to do with Biden's statements. President Joe Biden is warning Americans in Ukraine that it would be wise for them to leave or they might be caught in the crossfire. He made these statements during a joint press conference with the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz. Let's watch what he had to say.
I know that he's in a position now to be able to invade, almost assuming that the ground is frozen above Kyiv. He has the capacity to do that. What he's going to do, I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows but him.
To the Americans who are currently in Ukraine, should they leave the country?
I think it'd be wise to leave the country. I'm not talking about our diplomatic corps. I'm talking about Americans who are there. I hate to see them get caught in a crossfire if in fact they did invade.
So that statement is similar to what the State Department had put out earlier in this escalating conflict, where they said that certain diplomats should probably leave Ukraine. Biden stopped short of saying that diplomats should leave Ukraine. However, I just want to go back to the very beginning of his statement, where he's like, Putin's got all the troops necessary to do the invasion. It's interesting because the New York Times, which of course is not some like peace magazine, said that, yeah, they've amassed troops, but about 70% of the troops and personnel necessary to do an actual invasion into Ukraine. So there's a little conflict there. I'm curious if anyone's going to help us decipher what's true and what's untrue. Also, juxtaposition of the beginning of his statement to the final thing that he said there, which is like, I don't know what he's gonna do, but yeah, they'd be wise to leave Ukraine because they might be caught in the crossfire. Like what?
Okay, so is there some truth to the nickname Sleepy Joe? Okay, so look, most relevant thing here is that the solution to this is super simple, and everyone involved would be insane in the Ukraine to not resolve it. Okay, so here's the solution. We don't admit Ukraine into NATO. Who cares? Because that's what Russia wants. What's the big deal? What does it cost us? It costs us absolutely. Well, that would be giving in to Russia. Giving into, so what?
That's what it is, Cenk. It's giving in to Russia. It's all about ego, right? Because like, guys, I know I've said it a billion times before, and I'm sure you're super annoyed with me if you've already disagreed on our take, right? But come on, think about the United States in that same context, where you have a massive world power providing military weaponry, military capabilities, basically getting the entire NATO allied forces ready to go to war with Russia. And Ukraine is sharing that border with Russia. I think that it's legitimate to be concerned about security. And by the way, I'm not the only one saying that. Okay, you have this weird disconnect taking place as well among NATO allies, where you have the United States and the UK arguing like we're gung ho. This is an imminent threat. We, all guns blazing basically. Whereas you have Germany and France saying, hey, can we like handle this diplomatically first? We're escalating things very quickly. By the way, Ukraine saying we're escalating things too quickly. Can we please calm down? We don't believe that this is an imminent threat. But let me give you some more details.
But I got it. Look, so we're totally unbiased here, and you can see it with your own eyes because I've said every terrible thing in the world about Vladimir Putin, and he's deserved all of it. Pretty much ended democracy in Russia. He has imperialist ambitions. He's an authoritarian right winger. I can go on and on. But in this case, he's not wrong. He's like, you want to park all these missiles in this giant military alliance on my backyard. I didn't put my military alliance in Mexico, and the last time the Russians back then, when it was the Soviet Union, did it in Cuba, we nearly started World War III. So now you're saying no, I can just park them right next to you. Well, I hate saying it, but he's right, and so people say, "Oh, you don't want to give in to him." Well, if someone's right, why don't you want to give in to them? What a weird thing, right? Like, hey, this mug costs $20, right? Well, if I give you the $20, it'll be giving in to you. Yeah, and then you'll get the mug. That's how it works. What, do you just want the mug and you don't want to give me the $20? Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So, and you could find a polite diplomatic way of saying we're not going to expand NATO into Ukraine.
Yeah.
We'll consider it later, blah, blah, blah. And luckily, the French are not morons like us. And last time they tried to help us, they were warning us, don't go into Iraq. That's a terrible idea. And we're telling you as a friend, do not do that. And a lot of people here were like, oh yeah, we're gonna rename French fries to freedom fries, man, we hate the French. Well, now the French are dealing with Putin. Macron has talked to him. And luckily, it looks like they're close to a deal. So I hope Biden isn't an idiot and he listens to our French allies, which by the way, during the Iraq war, he was one of the people who didn't and who authorized that war.
Yeah, what a shocker. Now, I do want to go to one more clip from this press conference featuring Joe Biden and the Chancellor of Germany, because it shows you just how haphazard a lot of the US foreign policy really is. Okay, he makes a strong statement. There's a follow-up from a reporter, and it shows you that he hasn't really thought things through. Let's watch.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that? Exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Like, we're talking about war here, okay? We're talking about war. And I feel like everything is just kind of happening on the fly, including these like strong statements about what the United States is gonna do. So what they're referring to there, what the reporter was asking about, is the Nord Stream 2. It's a pipeline that's gonna deliver gas from Russia to Germany. And so Biden's saying, oh, if Russia invades, we're definitely gonna put a stop to that project. Which, by the way, I think that that's where you actually do have some leverage over Russia. Russia wants that deal to go through. And I think that considering all of the economic interests that Russia has, those interests outweigh any benefit of invading Ukraine, right? So I do think that that should be on the table, and Biden should make it clear, hey, if you're gonna do this, Nord Stream 2, that project's done. I'm totally fine with that statement. But there's like no preparation for this press conference.
Yeah, no,
like,
it's
what was
amazing.
that answer?
No, it's amazing, and the written articles didn't do justice to what actually happened. So I'm really glad we showed you the video, because okay, they all say, oh, Biden says that project's going to be over, and I agree with Anna that that's a real deterrence for Russia. I'm glad we're using deterrence so we don't get into an actual war. Having said that, you watch the video and you're like, oh my God, did he not clear it with the German Chancellor? They're in the same press conference. The German Chancellor's right next to him. So when she asked the question, well, how would you do that? I was assuming that he was going to turn around and go, oh, we just talked about it. And the German Chancellor can tell you that that project's going to be over. But he didn't, he was like, yeah, you betcha, we will.
It's insane.
And you're like, what? Did you guys not talk that through? That's massive. And you can't just say that on behalf of Germany. What the hell's going on here?
And look, to be sure, as I mentioned earlier, you have Germany and France trying to pump the brakes. They want to approach this in the most diplomatic way possible. That has caused some friction with the United States. For instance, ahead of this visit, the White House sought to play down Germany's refusal, gee, I wonder why, to supply lethal weapons to Ukraine, bolster its troops in Eastern Europe, or spell out which sanctions it would support against Russia, a cautious stand that has drawn criticism toward Germany, mostly from the US government. And Macron, as Cenk had mentioned earlier, did meet with Putin. I want to give you some details on that meeting because it's important. Macron, meanwhile, called for de-escalation as he began talks with President Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin. Dialogue is necessary because that's the only thing that will help, in my views, to build a context of a security and stability on the European continent, Macron said, adding that he's ready to start building an effective response. And he also provided legitimacy to the concerns that Russia's having in regard to their own security, right? The security and sovereignty of Ukraine or any other European state cannot be subject for compromise, while it is also legitimate for Russia to pose the question of its own security. The geopolitical objective of Russia today is clearly not Ukraine, but to clarify the rules of cohabitation with NATO and the EU. So
he's right.
He is right.
It's a legitimate issue that Russia is bringing up. And they brought up many illegitimate issues before, but this is not one of them. So look, there's one weird silver lining here. So the right wing has been weirdly subservient to Russian interests ever since Trump said that he loves Russia and we're done with it, right? And Hillary Clinton said that we hate Russia and they're responsible for everything in the world, and that made the right wing doubly love Russia. Okay, now I think that has a bunch of downsides. But here we have an upside, because if it was just us on the left saying, what are you doing? Don't start World War III, this is insanity, the mainstream media would call us terrorists, right? And
Totally.
they would question our loyalty, our patriotism. If you're not in favor of World War III, are you really American? But since a lot of the right wing is on our side on this, the press is scared of the right wing. And so
it's so true.
So they're like, oh wait, it's now apparently a legitimate point of view to be against World War III.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that reporters are asking tough questions during these press conferences. For instance, when the United States floated this idea that Russia is gonna do like a false flag. They're gonna attack themselves to make it appear as though Ukraine attacked them so they can invade Ukraine. Reporters were like, oh, cool, what evidence do you have that they're gonna follow through on this kind of attack? And they had no answers. And I think that those questions are super important. You're right, I don't think those questions would be asked if it weren't for both the right and the left kind of being unified on this issue and understanding that it's being escalated for no apparent reason. And by the way, there's a video that I want to get to after the break that helps you visualize how Ukrainian soldiers at the border are really feeling about this, because I think that's important. So we'll get to that later.
Okay, one last thing for now. So guys, this is actually a kind of a good moment for populism, both from the right and the left, because look, I think right-wing populism has gone in a disastrous direction, and it's off on 80% of issues in a very serious and dangerous way, especially the anti-democratic ideas they're putting out there now of, hey, if we don't win, who cares? Let's just have our guy be installed as president or whatever, etc. And we've talked about that endlessly. But now, finally, we're beginning to see an upside of like 20% of areas where the populist left and the populist right totally agree. And we're making an impact together. Now, the mainstream media will never note that because we're in opposition to them. And they hate that we're unified together. They would rather portray us as completely divided. But the reality is, both on war and anti-corruption issues, two massive issues, now the populist right and the populist left agree. And that is actually a pretty shockingly hopeful sign that perhaps we can expand upon that agreement and maybe even one day end corporate rule and get back to democracy. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.